Hello and welcome to Audie's Hauntings. We are here to talk to you about the history of Beardslee Castle, Little Falls, New York.
Beardslee stands today as an elegant restaurant.
John Beardslee started it all. So in 1787, he arrived at Whitestown, New York, where he built mills financed by the sale of shares, later selling his portion at a tidy profit. With that success of the project, he was engaged by the state to build a series of mills for the Oneida Indians. His construction jobs continued, and between 1790 and 1796, he built the first bridge across the Mohawk at Little Falls, the old red mills at Little Falls, mills at Van Hornsville and Canajoharie, bridges at West Canada Creek, East Canada Creek, and Fort Plain, and the Herkimer County Courthouse and jail. He settled at East Creek, about a mile up from the Mohawk, where a small town grew up around his developments. Known as Beardslee Mills or Beardslee City, the settlements thrived and grew to over 2,000 residents in the early 1800s. When the Erie Canal was built, Beardslee Mills fell into hard times, later to be abandoned altogether. John Beardslee died in October of 1825. The same month the canal opened. All that remains of Beardslee City is an overgrown graveyard at the edge of a cornfield and the limestone Beardslee family mausoleum and stand of virgin pine along the East Creek.
John's son Augustus carried on the Beardslee tradition of hard work and individual accomplishment. He graduated Union College in 1821 and went on to law practice in Little Falls. Later elected to state legislature, as well as serving time as a member of judiciary. He was selected by Lincoln as one of several representatives in a convention in Virginia in efforts to avoid civil war. Augustus invented New York Central Railroad. When he built the castle in 1860, he had a private semaphore installed so he could stop trains to travel to New York. The Beardsleys borrowed heavily on designs of Irish castles in constructing their home. Augustus's wife, Helen Catlin Bernard Beardslee, outlived him by a quarter century and continued to add artifacts and additions to the castle.
Augustus' son, Guy Roosevelt Beardslee, was born in 1858. He was schooled locally as a child, later attending Charlier Institute in New York, and then spending 2 years studying in France. He was appointed to West Point Military Academy, barely graduating 4 years later, last in his class in 1879. He received a commission in the infantry assigned to Fort Niagara in Nebraska shortly after the General Custer incident. He resigned his commission 1 year later to return to East Creek to handle the family estate. He took his place managing the estate that included a full working farm, cheese factory, and sawmill. In 1892, 2 engineers approached him from a firm in New York who paid him $40,000 in return for an option to develop power at East Creek on property still owned at the Beardslee City. they were unable to raise enough money for the project, which was considered risky because of the need to transmit power over the distance of 3 miles to the nearest town. Guy undertook the project himself, and enlisting the service of John Cranes with the intent of merchandising the family farm. This was to become the first rural electric power in the country. He realized the commercial potential and soon constructed several local farms as customers for the surplus power, later adding customers to the east in the towns of St. Johnsville, Fort Plain, Nelliston, and Canajoharie. The power to St. Johnsville was turned on St. Patrick's Day in 1898. In 1911, Mr. Beardslee sold the business to Adirondack Power and Lights, which later became Niagara Mohawk or NIMO. With the sale of the power company, the Beardsleys led a comfortable life, vacationing in Europe and spending winters in Florida and Mexico. It was while vacationing in Florida in February of 1919 that tragedy struck the Beardsleys. In the early hours of the morning, a fire started in the front of the castle. The structure was completely gutted, leaving nothing but the stone walls. The newspaper of February 19th claimed that the cause was arson to cover up theft. A mysterious man had been seen in the area for a few days before the blaze. The reports noted that all the precious artifacts and furnishings gathered from the Beardsleys' world travels were destroyed. Only the main floor was rebuilt, leaving the second floor without a roof, and with railings across the window openings. The back of the building was turned into garden space, and stone walls draped the flowers and vines. 2 of the original 3 tunnels which connected the buildings on the estate were closed off, and the rooms they led into were sealed forever. The Beardsleys continued to share their time between New York and Florida until 1937, when Guy passed away. He was survived by his wife, but left no children. Ethel died in 1941 to be laid to rest beside her husband in the family mausoleum at East Creek.
Gertrude Shiver sold the estate to Adam Horn of St. Johnsville, who took up residence with his wife for 1 year. They soon sold the building and carriage house to Anton Pop Christine of St. Johnsville, who opened the estate to the public as the Manor. The name was to stick for 45 years. Pop and his wife resided in a small cottage built beside the castle in what is now the West Courtyard. As Pop grew older, he became terminally ill. After many failed attempts, he committed suicide by hanging himself in the ladies' room of the castle, in what is now the side entrance foyer. Most of the Beardsleys furnished were still intact at that time, but the Christian's daughters sold them as auction a few years later, before selling the building to Herkimer restaurateur John Delda.
John operated the business until 1976, when he sold it to the owner of the lake house in Richfield Springs, Joe Caslio. Joe renamed the manor Beardslee Manor. He finished the basement area as a pub in 1977, recovered the roof a few years later, and added back the second floor in 1982. He brought in a professional ghost hunter in 1983 who spent the night and recorded faint voices on tape in front of an audience of skeptical reporters. Business took off as people flocked in to see the ghost. The staff did a great deal of entertaining and storytelling for an absentee owner, and the ghost stories got old. The business in the building declined, and the castle began a slow decay that ended in fire in 1989. The fire broke out in the back of the kitchen during the early mornings hours of August 30th, 1989. By the time the firemen arrived, the fire spread through the entire kitchen. When the smoke cleared, over 1,500 square feet of kitchen area had been destroyed. The building was abandoned, became a hangout for late night parties, and anything not bolted down was stolen. All the while, the water flowed down the slope behind the castle and off of what was left of the roof, with every drop flowing through the burnt-out kitchen door into the dining rooms. The vines grew over the roofline and worked their way into the roof, causing even more leaks. 2 spring lines in the cellar burst, and constant trickle of water began that did not stop for 3 more years.
The castle was purchased by current owners and renovated for a reopening in 1994 as Beardslee Castle, changing the name to Castle out to respect for the Beardsleys' original intents. After being abandoned for 3 years, it took nearly 18 months of cleaning and restoration to return it to its original state. Nearly every square inch of the castle has been restored or rebuilt. The original oak floors covered for the preceding 20 years with the wall-to-wall carpeting have been returned to their glistening shine. The stonework interior with its wide Gothic arches have been thoroughly cleaned of 140 years of dirt and soot. The wood paneled ceiling have been restored to warm luster, highlighting by Art Deco and Mission styling lighting features. The second floor bony room features beautiful floor-to-ceiling plate glass windows, giving a panoramic view of the valley. A completely new kitchen services of all 3 floors. So there you have it on the history of Beardslee Castle. We hope that you like it and stay tuned for the haunted history of the castle. Hope we see you there. Hope you all enjoyed. Drop a like, and if you're new, subscribe and leave a comment down below and tell us what you think.
Stay safe, and we hope you have a great day. Bye!